Looking for a new podcast? Step into the Mouse House with hosts Amanda and yours truly, David, as we discuss a different film or TV show available on Disney+. We are a podcast for adults. We focus on dark humor and needless deconstruction of all the films that we love. Come and laugh with us. I promise it's fun. And you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you could possibly imagine. So just search for Step Into the Mouse House on your podcast provider of choice.
Well, hello there. My name is Louie, aka Louie the Frenchie Manette, and you're listening to the Frenchie Watches. On today's episode, we are doing the Frenchie Watches, well, the Goon, or Goon, I should say. With me today on today's episode, it is my man, Mr. Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Lou. Excited to be on the show. Been a big fan since your first episode, so happy you had me on.
Well, thank you very much for being on. This is going to be our first guest that's joined the Frenchie Watches in as well as the Ringside Rewind, so we're happy to have you on the channel itself. All right, so
I'm happy to do it.
Well, let's go right into it, okay? Goon, first of all, directed by Michael Dowse, who did also Stuber, What If, and Fubar, and written by Jay Baruchel and Evan Goldberg. I've honestly never seen his other movies of Michael Dowse. Stuber didn't interest me. What If didn't interest me. Fubar, I remember slightly, but I was way too drunk to remember fully, so...
Stuber was a really interesting movie that I didn't think had it had no business being as entertaining as it was, but the chemistry between the characters was really what kept that movie going. And I think that's something this director can really pull out, because I think you see a similar thing here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, the chemistry was off the charts in this movie. It's a very charming movie, but I'm surprised with Stuber because I've heard only bad things about it, so it didn't really interest me. But if you're saying it's actually worth a shot, I'm actually watching.
You know what? It's definitely worth a shot. It's one of those things though that you go in after everyone's said this movie's terrible, and you come out and you're like, that movie was pretty good. That was, that wasn't so bad. I don't know what people are so pissed about.
Yeah, well, people are just angry in general. So, all right. So, as always, now we're gonna start with our movie thoughts. Like the overall general thoughts about the movie itself. Man, do I love the main character? He's such a lovable, good-hearted guy. Especially the way they presented him in the beginning with a montage of like him working at the bar, helping out people, then punching the shit out of someone, and then helping out an old guy, and then punching the shit out of someone else. They really like set a go to heart, but he has one thing to do in life is beat up people,
Oh yeah, and I've always been a big fan of Sean William Scott, obviously going back to American Pie and all that. It's interesting seeing him in such an aggro role, but he's an actor who does not get enough recognition for the stuff he can do and the different levels he can play.
Oh yeah, obviously he's used to being like typecast, But that's what was so refreshing about this movie. He is not Stifler. He's not the wisecracking. It actually sucks at wisecracking, in this movie. And he played that low-key character so well that I would love to see him in other things than we've seen him recently,
Yeah, like it's been a while since I can't actually think of the last movie outside of, and this is my first time seeing Goon, obviously, and I haven't seen the sequel. So I haven't seen him pop up in a lot of stuff. What's he doing these days?
I really don't know. I can give me a bit of your thoughts on the movie. I'll pop up his IMDb while you speak. So, what did you think overall about this movie?
Well, I'm a big fan of sports and sports movies, especially, and I was really pleasantly surprised by this because from what I knew about it, it was just was from the trailers that I had seen near a decade ago at this point, where it's just this guy who's really good at beating people up, but he's gonna go play hockey and stuff. So I was not expecting to connect with the characters as much as I did. Especially, I loved the relationship between him and Jay Baruchel, his buddy. I love that that first when they go to the game and Jay Baruchel's heckling the people on the ice and stuff. I was like, when are we going to get to the hockey? I know this guy plays hockey, and then you see him crack the guy's helmet, and you're like, oh, this is good. And from that moment on, I was sold on this movie.
Yeah, and like this movie could have been so cheesy, and we'll talk about later in the movie trivia, but it had a very low budget, so it couldn't have been really cheesy and not watchable. But there's something about this movie that even though it's low budget, it was so well made because of the characters, because of Jay Baruchel and Sean William Scott being so natural in the roles that something just clicked in the movie.
Yeah, and it extends, I think, out to almost every character. I don't know that there's a single character in here who I don't find interesting on some level. For me, like Eugene Levy as his dad, he just kills every time I see him on screen. I'm just immediately drawn to him. I don't know if it's the eyebrows or what it is about that guy, but you want to hear what he has to say, and him playing like the uppity doctor type and stuff really was just great. I also loved Eva Peel. Eva, played by Allison Pill.
Oh yeah.
I love her. She's an actress who I don't think she doesn't show up in enough stuff. I don't think, but I first saw her in
TV. She does a lot of TV.
That makes sense because I loved her in Scott Pilgrim. And then when she popped up in this, I was like, oh my gosh, she was in this. I love her. And then I was just trying to think back, and I was like, I can't think of anything recently she's done. But if you're saying she does a lot of TV, that would explain it.
But
I'm not watching too much.
She was on the HBO Newsroom, and she's recently in Picard. I have a love-hate relationship with her because I love her as an actress, but especially like in Picard, her name is Agnes, and she reminds me of my ex, Agnes. So it was kind of weird seeing. It's like, okay, well, she reminds me of her. Now she's named Agnes. This is not good. But yeah, she was fantastic. But that's one thing I found about the movie. I love the movie as a whole, but that part, the romance part, is now watching it back, that part felt forced to me. I didn't really believe it. I didn't really click the romance between him and Eva. It just didn't work for me, that part.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I think the two of them are two great parts that don't make a great whole together. I just don't think I think it's just the chemistry wasn't there between the two, and maybe that's the two actors didn't get along on set or what have you. But I think when she's talking, and she has that one great line, which it's been a minute. I watched this movie last week, so it's been a second. I think it's like bruises are sexier than tattoos or something like that. And I was like, that's a good line. I like this chick. But then the two of them, when they have to play off each other romantically, I don't buy it, but I like the two of them independently.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I like their characters. They're really well played, but you're right. I don't know if it was because of off screen, but something about the chemistry just didn't gel. But for the rest as a whole, especially the chemistry between teammates, I love the scenes them in the locker room because it's kind of what I imagine, especially in the minor leagues. You got to be a special person to play hockey just in the get-go, right? Being in the midst of 100 miles an hour, skating on ice, shooting flying rubber pucks at 100 miles an hour as well. You need to be a kind of special type of person. And they have characters, they have weird personalities, and it's kind of what I imagine in life as well.
Yeah, especially I love the characterization of those guys in the locker room. Not one of them. I didn't feel like anyone felt like a caricature. They all felt like fully realized people, which is something I was a big fan of. And especially Xavier, what's his last name? Laflamme?
Xavier Laflamme.
I was a big fan of that, and even more so after after I watched the movie. I went online, started looking at some reviews and stuff, and there was a specific person who called out his name, saying that it sounded like Pepe Le Pew's romantic rival, and I was just like, I like this character even more now.
Well, they kind of referenced him to Pepe Le Pew in one of the scenes actually. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think they are on the nose on that comment. Especially La Flamme. I like this character because I don't want to say it, but it is a stereotype of like the high end French Canadian players. A lot of them have the reputation of being, everything handed to them because Quebec is the nation of hockey in Canada. Already Canada is big on hockey. Quebec personally has, churned out one of the couple of the best players to ever seen or to be playing right now. So a lot of them have a high end personality, and I like the story arc he had in his character.
Yeah, I always look for, and I think what's great about sports movies is that they can show us how someone can go from having this damaged piece of them or this big character flaw. In his case, it's the fear of getting hit because he was someone who was rising up and could have had a promising career. But seeing him overcome and work through that is just such a relatable and human feeling.
Yeah, because he got it. He got everything handed to him, right? He has a natural talent. He's good with the puck. He was drafted fifth, I think, by Montreal. Go Montreal! And and so everything was handed to him. And with that hit, that disaster that happened to him, shot back his confidence and his skill. But yeah, it is something that happened sadly often to certain rookies, that they have so much potential, and then something either personal life or something on the ice happened and they were never the same, So it is relatable, and it kind of shows that the people who made this movie knows hockey. It knows like the certain types of characters, certain types of players that are on in real life on the ice. It shows that it's made by people who love hockey.
Well, I think a big part of that is the film was written by Jay Baruchel, and he's a Canadian kid from here in Ontario. I think he's from not Halifax, Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Hamilton, but lives in Montreal.
That's right. So like he grew up loving hockey and stuff, and I think that's part of why the dynamics are so real. You can tell that this is not only someone with a passion for what they're understanding that you can't get from an education, you need to get from growing up in the Great White North.
Yeah, for sure. And also I saying that it kind of like, it's funny to me because we're used to it. We grew up with hockey, right? But now like you watching YouTube videos of especially this guy from Ireland who's discovering hockey and falling in love with hockey. For the rest of the world, hockey's a strange sport. I mean, like, yeah, there's scoring and everything, but the violence and the fighting of it, I forget it's not part of many other sports. You don't have people dedicated to, just to fucking up other players or hitting other players. This is pretty unique to hockey, and this movie highlights that role really well.
Yeah, and it is as it's been discussed a lot. It's becoming less and less of a respected role, but it's still a valued role in the team, and I think that's what's so interesting about this movie in particular. A lot of the times when we get these movies about hockey specifically, whether it's like Miracle or I just watched all the Mighty Ducks movies again, it's all about like the precision stick handlers and like the the flips and the passing and all that, and you get like side characters like the Bash Brothers or stuff or other guys who are doing some hits. But we've never really gotten into who they are and what the psychology of your job is to go out there and not be the star, but to knock out their star and keep our star alive.
Yep. It shows the testament of what really hockey is, because it's a very dangerous sport, and there's a lot of bad intentions sometimes. Look at the old Philadelphia and old Boston team. They're renowned to be hitters first and scorers second, and even if you go back in history of hockey, the first ever like match that was in Canada, like the real hockey as we know it, actually had a whole team versus team fight. So it's ingrained into hockey since the very beginning.
Yeah, that is true what you say. It's a very hockey centered concept. You never saw Gronk just knocking out a guy on the defensive line when he was playing football. And I think that's something that this movie really draws on, and it doesn't do anything to show. It doesn't glorify the violence, but it does not villainize it either, which I think is a very delicate tightrope that they were able to walk, and I was very impressed when watching it.
And they really show us the respect that they have, because it's true too. I watch a lot of documentaries on hockey, and a couple of them were one of the terms that a goon is for is enforcers in hockey. And I've seen a couple of documentaries on enforcers, and there's a lot of respect, especially we see cameos of them in the movie. But Georges Larac, he's a very lovable guy. He doesn't play anymore, but he was recognized for his fists, not his hockey stick or his puck skills, But at the same time, there's a lot of, recognition that they don't hate each other. Just because they're hitting each other does not mean, they actually have a personal vendetta. It is their job. They're getting paid for this. So it is a very interesting very interesting dive into what they're feeling, because it's what they're good at. They're not necessarily good on the ice, but they're there for a reason, and they have respect for each other. But come on the ice, they have a job to do, and may the best man win.
Yeah, and you know what? I think someone we haven't talked about at all yet, who was probably my favorite character in the entire movie, was Liev Schreiber.
Yeah,
as Ross the boss, and I was just, first of all, Liev Schreiber, I think, was 47 years old or whatever when this movie came out. So in the movie, at first I was like, I don't know, man, you're looking a little old to be a goon. But he was just doing so great, and I loved how much Doug just idolized Ross and stuff at the beginning, until eventually they had to come face to face.
And even then, like that scene in the restaurant when he sits down and has that discussion, you can see also there's respect. He saw himself when he was younger in this kid, but also gives a warning that this is all we're good for. Once you finish fighting, you get forgotten. This is a very thankless job, and it's true to hockey. The fighters, when they're used, when they're done, they're done. They have repercussions more than other players, because that's their main jobs. They're getting hit all the time, and then you get thrown back in, and it's like a war veteran. Thank you for your service. Have a good luck. So we're touching a bit of what I want to talk about in trivia wise. So if you don't mind, we're gonna go in the trivia part.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
This film, if you're not actually aware, is based on a book called The True Story of an Unlikely Journey into Minor League Hockey by Adam Fantasio and Douglas Smith. And it's actually about Smith's, part of it, Smith's career. So this is actually based off a real person.
Oh, well, that is, you know what? I think you can tell that just by how, I think this goes back to something we were praising earlier, just how real the characters are.
Yeah. And it shows, because it's made up in certain aspects, but it does show, especially later on, there's a couple of events that has actually happened. Another little interesting fact is this is yay to Canada. This is most part a Canadian cast, including Jay Baruchel, Kim Coates, Alison Pill's Canadian, that I didn't know, the one who plays Eva, and obviously Eugene Levy. Funny enough, the only non-Canadians in the role, major role, was Sean William Scott and Liev Schreiber. Ironically, Baruchel plays an American character, while Schreiber plays a Canadian character. So a little flip there. But yeah, it was mostly Canadian people on this movie.
You know what? We grow really talented and very pretty people up here in Canada, so I'm not surprised.
Yep, homegrown, baby. Also, in the interview with the hockey blog Puck Daddy, Liev Schreiber actually notes that his character was inspired by the former hockey enforcer Bob Probert. And as an homage to a player, he actually taped his wrist for the film, just like Probert does when he played before. Do you know Bob Probert?
No, I am what I would like to describe as a hardcore casual fan of hockey. I love
Okay.
watching it. I love breaking everything down. But you ask me to name 7 players, I'll get to 5 just because I know enough people in my real life.
Okay. No, I get that. Like I'm saying I'm a hardcore hockey fan of the Canadians. That's I can talk a lot about Canadians. Don't ask me the historical facts about Boston. Don't ask me about other players. Like I know a couple, but I'm not Soda, right? Soda can probably give us a whole lesson on hockey, wrestling, and movies combined. I know enough, but I get you. Also, one very interesting fact, and this is what I wanted to go back when I was talking in the beginning. Georges Larac, who opened this movie with Liev Schreiber, actually his fight scene, the polite fight scene in the middle of the movie, is based off a real fight he had when he was mic'd. He actually politely asked Ivanis from the LA Kings if he wanted to go, and then wished him good luck. And that game was on November 30th, 2006. So that part was actually based off of Georges Larac's actual experience.
Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing. Because I could have sworn when I was watching that, I was like, man, this can't be real. But also, I feel like I've heard people talk about this before. Are they just talking about this movie? Maybe.
But yeah, no, it's a real thing. That's why I'm saying George Larac is a teddy bear. He's known to be one of the most jovial people, but his job is to beat people up. But he would have this respect, and a lot of people would respect him as well. That he would just like, you want to fight, you good to fight? Okay, well, good luck, bro. And then you should fight. And then at the end, saying, that was a good fight. Thank you. Till next time. So there's no bad blood. It was part of the game. They knew their position, and especially Josh Larac knew his position in hockey, and just played with a heart and played with a smile. And it's a testament for those kind of people. The goons of hockey are usually the most. Some of them not. I'll be honest, but usually like Ty Domi's father, Domi, he was a fighter, was a scrapper, but he also was a good character and had a lot of humor to him. So a lot of them have been stereotypical to being the bad guys, but they really aren't.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so impressive. And I know I keep using that word a lot in this, but it's what's impressive about this film. On the surface, you see it and you think know it's going to be, but I think through exploring the goon archetype, you really are able to get a better understanding and appreciation for the real life people. And the more you go through this trivia, the more that I am vindicated in that thought.
Yep. Yeah, it's basically like fighters in the UFC or boxers. They sacrifice their bodies for the sport and the audience. Those have like serious repercussions on your body, being hit all the time, being smashed against the board. Like same thing for wrestlers. They put their life and their body on the line for us.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sure, they definitely do, and I'd be curious to see the sequel to this film. But if the sequel goes into any of that at all.
It does. It's really not as good, to be honest. It's worth watching it once. It was directed by Jim Bear Show, and it kind of shown it like didn't have the pizzazz and the character work that it had the first one. The first one, everyone was lovable, everyone was believable. The second one, you see, I remember parts of the movie, and I've seen it like 3 times now, and it's not memorable, to be honest. It's still worth, like, especially if you love the first one now, to see the continuation of the character, but it's not as well fleshed out.
That's upsetting to hear.
Sorry. Another little interesting fact: this movie was on a limited budget. It was very small. Like to even have like a couple really good actors, they had a very small limited budget, so small that many of the background players have shown wearing sweaters with short surnames. They actually had to do 5 letters or less because anything more than 5 letters would cost them too much money and they would go over budget.
That's how you know you've both made it to the big time and also are scratching the door at the big time saying, "Let me in." When there's someone saying, "Hey, you can be named Jones, but you cannot be named Johnson." That's too much.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it would save time and money just doing 3 to 5 characters. So if you look really in the background, if ever you rewatch a movie, almost all the supporting characters is just short names. That's it. And the only ones you see with longer names were a couple of the people on the main team. You know.
What do you think it cost per letter?
You know what? I don't know, but it's I know I probably think it's a lot of time consuming, and like it or not, adding a couple letters here and there is okay. But they had a lot of jerseys to do, right? Because if you recall, you see at least like what 5-6 teams, and on the 5-6 teams, there was everyone, like, so 18 jerseys times 5 to 6 teams. That's a lot of jerseys. So a couple of letters might actually make the difference for real.
Oh my, yeah, that would. Yeah, all right. Now, before I was making a joke, being like, "That's not." Come on, but now you've convinced me, and now I retract my statement. Goon, I'm sorry.
How dare you contradict my movie trivia, sir? Anyways, now that being said, I actually wanted to touch upon probably the most interesting movie trivia fact. Is you remember that scene that Doug scored a goal with his butt?
I heard that actually happened, didn't it?
Exactly. In 2000, the minor league player, which is based on Doug Mann, scored a goal in overtime for Columbus Cottonmouths of the Central Hockey League. And when the puck deflected off his butt, it actually sent them to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh my gosh! Like, I would hope that created a whole style of play in the minor leagues.
Well,
you got to get some butt guard.
No, not just it's butt deflections for the win, my friend. But yeah, it seemed too good to be true, like something invented. But yeah, it's an actual fact, and they decided to put it in the movie because it was so out of like real life, something that you can only make up, that it made just sense with the movie, the style and the humor of it. It just fit with the movie perfectly.
Oh, for sure. Sure. Like, knowing that that's a real thing that actually happened makes me even more happy, because I was like, man, what a smart thing they did coming up with this. It just fits the tone so perfectly. But knowing that this was a real thing that Jay Baruchel probably heard about and was like, well, we need to put that in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
It's just so exciting.
Now that being said, we're going to go on to one of our sponsors and or show plugs. So you just give us a couple of seconds and we'll be right back.
Well, hello there. This is Louis the Frenchie Manette. Now listen to me closely, okay? Do you need to update your podcast logo design? Outdated? Or always wanted to look more professional with your own business card? Now, from graphic design to audio-visual equipment rental, Axeware is your main spot. This is professional service and competitive prices. you can always reach them at 956-312-4823 on Facebook under Axaware, or simply axaware@gmail.com. That is ACSIWARE, Axaware. We got you covered.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sticking through. So yeah, on to what I call the deeper layer of the movie. This is where we go a bit more into the movie's message, into the deeper stuff of the movie that you would probably think about the first time go around. But that's why we're here. That's why you're listening to this podcast, is to understand a bit more on what makes this movie tick. What is the message? Now, I want to start on my end. The underlying, personally, and I can see myself a lot in this, is especially the first lines of the movie, where you can see Jay Baruchel's character on a podcast, and then you see Doug being all depressed, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry I put you down," and Doug says, "No, but I just realized that everyone's got a thing. The only thing I do is beat people up, This message of the movie is finding your purpose in life, finding your place in the world where your life seems stagnant and not going anywhere, and that's a dangerous place to be in. And that's what life is, right? It's to finding what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to be headed. So it's really about finding yourself.
Yeah, and I think that that's a message that is shared through many sports movies. I think that's just because of the nature of competing and how revealing it can be. We get to see that theme explored, and I agree with you here that that's definitely a theme that I think Goon was trying to, and for the most part, I feel succeeding at conveying.
Yeah, definitely. Especially other sports movies, they had a calling. They knew they're going to do this all their lives, or something happens when they're young. This is basically, you can see at the beginning, he does not know how to skate. He never knew that he can actually do this until he just tried. And this is where I harken back to, what we're doing right now. Before this, and before I met my girlfriend, I was in a bad spot in my life. I was in a relationship with a good person, but just not made for me for 8 years. And I was stuck in a rut, man. I was going left and right, trying to find myself and living through a very long depression. And then I met my girlfriend, and then something just clicked in my head that, I have to start doing something. And this is where we started Schmoes of the North. And I actually found myself a bit more now, because I find a bit my calling. I found my place in this world. So it kind of like clicked with me the second time around, because I saw where my life journey is heading now. And I understand the character. He was kind of lost until just something, clicked in his head. In his case, punching the shit out of someone in the stands, but something clicked in his head. And when he got the opportunity, he just said, yeah, he faked it to make it, and just grabbed on the opportunity and just followed his heart,
Yeah, and that, I think, that's the interesting thing about movies, is they really meet you where you are in your life. And I would not be surprised if you watch this movie again in five years and find another connection to either him or another character in the film,
Mm-hmm.
just based on where you are in your personal life. And I do love, and that's something we never got a chance to talk about, that he really didn't know how to skate. And I know, not really the overall message, but a smaller message is, hey, it's never too late to learn.
Oh yeah, no, and no, you know what? It's not a small message at all. It's true, Like if I can take someone that was on Ringside Rewind, or is going to be next week, but we taped it a bit earlier, is my man, Mr. Reverend Granddaddy. He started podcasting very late in his life, and a lot of things were happening in his life, and he just decided to do something. you're never too old to try. And it just clicked, and he found a new purpose of life, and starting to connect with other people like me, Matt, and probably eventually you. There's a lot to be said of just trying something and see where it goes, because you can be 14 or you can be 80. I strongly believe that you're not too old if you have the mindedness of doing so to learn something of life, because life can be very surprising if you just give it a chance.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that you see more also throughout the movie, especially when you see him interacting with Eugene Levy, and I forget the actor who plays his brother.
Yeah.
I can't think of him off the top of my head, but you see a lot of that, trying new things, because obviously they're very much one way and of a similar ilk, where Doug is just so far in a different direction, but having to learn even more of this, which is at the same time helping him understand who he is, while at the same time showing just how different he is and how disparate he is from his family.
Yeah, and like by following his heart, he kind of sunk in his parents' expectation, because they wanted him to be something in particular or something that using his head, and he said, like, I'm not smart, which I believe that smarts are many different things. It's not just book knowledge, right? He's smart his own way, but I get what he means, right? The expectations that they have upon him does not fit him, and sadly, parents have a tendency, to have a plan in their head and hope the kid follows. But when they actually follow their dream instead of what they should be or what is expected of them, they just disappointed in him. And they kept being disappointed in this one, that's for sure, because you don't see them back, right? It ends there. The only person who supports him is his girlfriend and his gay brother, which I find funny. Every time, like, yo, you faggot, stop saying faggot, and keeps punching the person back. But that's the only two people who support him and actually believe in him.
Yeah, I think that's so. It's such an interesting film, and something that doesn't get explored a lot. I'm really happy that we chose to do Goon, because it was a treat to get into.
Yeah, it was a treat to get into, because it's a fine balance of heart, of humor, and of a deeper meaning than you would actually expect from a hockey comedy. But Jay Baruchel did a really good job of fine tuning it to find the right balance script wise, and the director to actually give it a voice that, again, like we said before, it could have been so cheesy, it could have been so stereotypical and just a stupid hockey movie, but it didn't turn out that way. And they did a really good job, and that's because there is a message to it. It's not just about people hitting each other,
Yeah, and that goes back to what we discussed earlier about it's not glorifying or villainizing the fighting. It's looking at the characters and what they're doing, and I think that's why the message of this movie, as you just discussed, hits so genuinely.
So that being said, how many hockey pucks do you give it now that you've seen the movie?
How many hockey pucks is it out of?
10 hockey pucks.
I would definitely give this like an 8 hockey pucks. I really enjoyed myself in this. It was not a movie that transcended for me, but it was a movie that I could definitely see myself not only watching again, but recommending to friends who haven't seen it, even though, based on conversations I have, it sounds like I'm the only person in the world who has not seen this film.
Yeah, but this is definitely a movie I would recommend someone who doesn't know hockey, or even though it's just fighting itself. This is something I would definitely show people who don't know hockey, because it would run into what they think hockey is, a lot of fighting, but it would also give them the respect of the people who do it, because I've talked to a lot of people who don't know hockey, and they say, all those people, who beat up other people, I don't get it. Or, what are they doing with their lives, etc. They just don't get the role, right? And it would really show them that they're not just like empty-headed idiots. They have feelings. They have, there's almost a unwritten code with that kind of role,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that pretty much finishes our episode for this week. Thank you again, Mr. Dave, for your time and for your support into my podcast. Thank you very much for being on, sir.
Oh, no problem. I will be happy to come back on anytime you need me.
All right. Well, so far I'm pretty booked until the end of May, thank God, and I can't wait because we have a couple incredible guests, including actual movie critic in the end of May. So that if everything goes well, that'll be a very, very interesting conversation to have an actual movie critic on my show.
I was a pretty big get too, so like no big deal or anything.
Oh yeah, but I know you.
Yeah, well, all right. At least wait till I'm not on the show to start downplaying my importance, Lou.
Oh, okay. Squash berries. All right. And you can't beat me this time.
This is going to be the only disliked video on our YouTube channel.
Hey, you know what? I just might leave it on Anchor, sir. But thank you very much again for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And where can we find you if people want to start following you? Where can they follow you?
You can find me at Lees Me Alone on Twitter, at Baby James Lees on Instagram, and if you're into movie trivia, you can head over to Jack of All Trivia on Facebook and sign up for their movie trivia league. I run a franchise movie trivia match every week. We focus on a different franchise. That just started up, so go over there. Let's have some fun.
Yes, sir. And are you still the geek champion?
Yes, I am still the geek champion for a little bit. I got to play Jay Burns coming up in 2 weeks.
All right. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Well, till next show, thank you very much for listening. Have some fun. Bye-bye.